Hey, let's talk about how to take tables and combine them together to create reports. This happens all the time with databases. We've created these tables to represent separate entities, and there's relationships between the tables, but we have to report where we have to combine these tables to produce useful information. So when we talk about joining tables, let's consider we have an A table and a B table. The tables could be named anything, but we'll just think of them as table A and table B. And the simplest type of join to do is to take A and B and combine them. But you have to discuss, well, how are you supposed to combine them? How do you combine a row in table A with a row in table B? And the way you can do it is by saying, I want to combine A and B row by row when a certain value matches. So for example, if we had an author in an authors table that had a city where the authors lived, and we had a publishers table that had a city in it of where the publisher is, we could say join the author rows to the publisher's rows by the city matching. So let's take an example of doing that. Let's start by looking at the authors table. The authors table has these columns in it: author ID, first name, last name, and one of the values in it is city. So if I query on this table and I retrieve all the values, I can see everything that's in the table. And in my case, I have about 8 rows in the table because I've added a special author there. Now let's look at the publisher table. Publisher table also has a city in it. There's the city, and if we look at the publishers, we just have a few. Now what we're going to say is I want to combine these two tables. So I match rows only where the cities match up. Now some authors are going to be dropped from this combined query because they live in a city where there is not a publisher. So let's do the join command. I'm starting off by saying, hey, I'm using the database books. That makes it a little bit easier to refer to the tables without giving them a prefix of the database name. So I'm using the database books, and I'm going to say I want to select the author's first name and the author's last name and the author's city and the publisher name from authors. And just looking at this so far, notice a couple things. First of all, author's first name, author's last name, author's city. That is the columns that are here: last name, first name, city. Now notice here that I have a prefix on the city saying authors dot. I'm identifying the table that contains city. I'm going to come back to that point in a bit, but it has to do with some ambiguity that you hit if you take it out. We're getting the publisher's name. That is from the publisher's table. Okay, so we're selecting this information. These three are from the authors table. This one actually is from the publishers table, but we say from authors, inner join. That means combining the two queries. Inner join is this case here. We're not getting all the rows in A. We're not getting all the rows in B. We're only getting a row from A and a row from B when it matches. So it's an intersection of those two tables. And I say do this when the authors dot city, the authors table, the city column, matches the publisher's city column. And that's actually why I had to put authors in this spot here. Let me just take it out to make sure this point's clear. Suppose I just said this. I just said city, and I tried to run it. It's going to give me an error. Let me just get the window positioned a little bit better. And I'll clear out my window here. And when I run this, we're going to see it's going to complain. It says that it's way down at the bottom of the screen, but it says this column city is ambiguous. It's saying, well, do you want that city from the authors table or from the publishers table? And it turns out the value is the same because we said it was going to be the same, but we have to tell it really which one we want. So that's why we put authors in there. All right, so let's run it. It should work now. We'll just clear out these old messages here, and we run it. And we have a result, and we got 3 authors. There were originally more authors there. And the city, this is the common city value that occurs in the authors table and the publishers table. So that is a very simple inner join. Now, in this module, if you look at the book describing SQL joins is going to go into a lot of detail with how to do different joins, and it can get fairly complicated. But just look and read through those examples. Let's just maybe talk about a few little tricks before we start. One thing you can do is sometimes your database table names are really long. And you can do kind of a nice trick. You can say, after you mention the name of the table, you can say as, and you can come up with a single letter name for the table as A, refer to authors as just letter A. If I do that, I can just put the letter A in there. That's kind of a nice little trick. And I can do the same thing with publishers. I could say as P. And then when I run it, we'll get the same results. This can be handy, especially if your SQL statement is very long and you're referring to the table names over and over again. It can be very convenient to do it in this way. But that's just one more trick. So look at the assignment and problems you have to do, and look at the chapter in the book on the joins, and see how you do. I think just in closing, I'll just point out one last thing. We did inner join, and another very common case are outer joins. And the outer joins are these two cases here. So I could say this is a left outer join. In this case, I'm saying, hey, I want you to show me every single row in table A. All right, now that wasn't true here. Here we only saw a row if there was a matchup between A and B. But here I'm saying, I want every single row in A, whether you match it in B or not. But if you do match it in B, show me that information in B, matching it up on some key. Okay, so if I go back to my SQL, instead of saying inner join, if I say left outer join, instead of getting just some of the authors, I'm going to get all the authors. And it's going to say, for the publisher's name, it's going to put null where it couldn't match up the rows. So that is a left outer join, and similarly, there is a right outer join. All right, that was the quick tutorial on joins. Go give it a try.